I grew up James Island, then West Ashley, then James Island. Again, those were where my family moved. And in the house that I did middle school through high school on, that's where my parents still live and where I come back to. Right out of college, I did Spring Awakening, which was like an amazing artistic experience on Broadway and on the national tour. But then I did the West Side Story revival as Tony, and that was my first like real principal track that I ever got to do. And that was at the Palace Theater with a 35-piece orchestra, and that was amazing. I got to work with Arthur Lawrence. That was before he passed away. That was amazing. And then I did the Rent revival off Broadway. So that was really cool, working with the original team to try to recreate the show a little bit for a new space. Then Wicked on tour and on Broadway, and now this. So yeah, there's not been any, and then interspersed with little TV gigs and films and whatnot. I've been lucky.
Pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know people and have been around people that have incredible voices and can act really, really well, but have never really reached the pinnacle of their craft. What separates those kinds of people? How do you get to that level? What are some people now, if they really want to be where you are, even if they're great at what they're doing, what do they need to do in order to get to that level?
Part of it is just dumb luck. Like, that is part of it. There are so many talented people that it's not always about just what you do and what you can do. There's a lot of luck that goes into it, because you book one thing that then leads to another thing, and that sort of snowball effect is something that in a lot of ways you can't control. But you can control some things, and the thing that you can control the most is putting the craft first and putting the career first. And in a lot of ways, that's sometimes, I feel stress about that, because sometimes there's some auditions and things like that, like a role comes up or somebody's interested in you for something. And I realize how much I immediately, without even thinking, just drop sort of everything else to focus on that one thing. I am completely beholden to that thing. And I think that's just the mindset that all of the people at the top of their game have to have. Like, that everything else just sort of takes a back seat. You hope you can have all the other things, right? And sometimes you can. It doesn't mean, there are plenty of people who are successful and balanced families and things like that. And I plan on doing that too. I want to have kids. I want all of that stuff. But you have to figure out how to make it work within the framework of the job. And for me, I don't think I ever knew, I never really saw myself like touring all the time, like in my 20s and early 30s, or off and on, but that's where the job took me. And that's the luck side of it, is like, if I had been a different kind of lucky, I would be maybe just doing Broadway things, and maybe I would have a more stable life in New York. But because tours are a big part of the commercial musical theater market, and because in a lot of ways it's an actor's dream, because you can save a lot of money because they're paying for your housing and your food and things like that. And you just have to be willing to like jump on the ship and go for it. And that is something that I think a lot of people just don't have that in their bones. They don't just for me, it's automatic. I don't even think about it.
You're so passionate about it that you're willing to put almost everything second.
Yes, yeah. What about the Portland house?
He left you the beach house.
Ever since you came back into my life, I knew we were meant for each other, so let's do it. Let's get married. Let's have kids.
Yes?
Can't hear you.
I said yes.
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 Big differences in film and on stage, obviously. What are some pros to stage and some pros to film?
The pros of film and television is that you don't have to recreate the same thing. you might play the same character even on a long running show, like something that lasts 10 seasons or something like that, but your arc is going to constantly change because that's how they keep it interesting, and that's how they keep you interested. So you're constantly working with new text, new circumstances, and that's something that I would like to do, because I've done 5 major musicals in my career now. But really long runs of things, and you're doing, you're working on the same thing over and over and over again. So that would be fun. I find that it doesn't really matter where you go. There's a charm in each and every place that we go to. I mean, there really is. There's something there. Because we're always going to some sort of urban center, right. Even if it's a rural area, the place we go has to have a population base large enough to support, and an economic base large enough to support the show for an entire week, because that's our minimum. So, or at least 7 shows. I think that's as few as we'll ever do in a place. And there really is that, and sometimes places that you least expect to have a lot of charm have tons of charm. And it all depends on what you bring into it too, like where you are in your life at that moment, where you're housed, where, how the theater situation is, because we spend most of our time in the theater.
What are you doing health-wise, or to keep your vocals, like you're saying, they get strained, whether you're tired or in a new city, or the
changing weather?
Yeah, what do you do to help combat against that, or help maintain that high level you're talking about?
I mean, technique and all the training I've gone through my whole life definitely helps to try to figure it out, because there's no way to really train for an 8-show week, because in college or in high school, obviously, we do 4 performances or something like that. So you don't know how to do 750 or 8 shows a week and then travel on your day off. I warm up. I'm very good about warming up every day. That's a big thing. I have a certain amount of exercises, and it depends on how much time I have and what I do. And then there's some extra ones if I'm feeling really tired that day. There's some exercises that'll lighten up the voice, or each one does a different thing. Like different vowels, different consonants, different, sequences of pitches and things like that, will do different things to the voice. Sort of like an athlete stretches or, warms up. It's the same thing. It's just doing it with these little tiny muscles and opening up resonator chambers and things like that.
So is yoga something that you got into for what you're doing on the stage, or something that you got into because you enjoyed the benefits to your health, or how did you get into yoga?
I got into it because I wasn't stretching very much, so it was definitely more of a physical practice at first, and then getting good teachers and who would talk about how the only thing is the focus on the breath is the real practice of meditation, and then Shavasana at the end, after many, many, many hours and years of training, that started to sink in a different way, where it wasn't just about bodily health. It was about, focus, mindfulness, but also, bodily health at the same time. Like you get a lot done in that hour, I find.
And you're running quite a bit now?
I'm running, yeah. I used to run cross country for Porter-Gaud, and I gave it up for a long time. I kind of quit around college time, I think. I wasn't running very much. And I don't even remember what got me back into it. It reminds me of yoga in that it feels like a meditation. Like most workouts, it's so regimented in terms of now you move on to this thing, and now you move on to this thing. Whereas running, it's just, you're running, you're with you, the whole time. And you have different gears, and you can focus on certain things, but essentially it's the same thing. And especially long distance running, which I always took to when I was a kid. I was never super, super fast, but I took to the cross country aspect of it because I could run for forever and not get
You're free.
bored or too tired or anything like that. And then I was like, well, I've never done a half marathon. I'll do a half marathon. Did a half marathon. Then I was like, well, I've never done a marathon, so I'll do a marathon. And I did my first one in Kauai this year. That was really, really fun.
No way.
It was very hard, too. It was very hilly.
How many marathons have you done?
One. I'm doing the Charleston Marathon. I heard it's a really good course because it's cool and it's flat.
Yeah.
Kauai was hot and hilly and very hard.
All the sports I've played, running was a punishment, so
Uh-huh.
it remains that for me.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
never been enjoyable.
I love it. It's just a chance to, keep coming back from like the crazy thoughts that are always bouncing around in there to just feeling footsteps on the ground, being grateful for my health and the fact that I can run. And especially, you know what, that touring around the country, running is so nice because you get to see, there's some places where there's beautiful places to go run and you get a sense of the place and the season and the time, and it's nice.
It sounds so romantic to think about being in a new city all the time. Is it awesome? Is it awesome and really hard?
Yeah, it's both, yeah, for sure. I mean, and when you're on tour, when I'm on tour for a while, at a certain point I start to miss the idea of having a place to hang your hat, you know?
Right.
It's hard because my career's taken me all over the country, and I've never lived in the same place for more than a year since I've graduated college. Just, you know, the energy that you put into a place like definitely lives there, like in your things and from your memories and stuff like that. And when it's always blank, no matter where you go, that's taxing for sure. That's definitely taxing. A lot of people do juggle it because they want personal lives and things like that, and they do. You know, it doesn't mean you can't have a family or anything like that. But it's sort of like second on the ladder. Second, and that kind of sounds sad when I say it in a lot of ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to love them less. It just means that the priority of your schedule like demands that you have to do that thing first and then carve out time around it to do everything else. Only certain roles and certain jobs like attract me at this point. And luckily I have done enough to where I have the freedom to be able to do that, you know, I'm always trying to save enough to where I can really enjoy that time off and enjoy my evenings, because I will always be a theater actor. I mean, I'm looking into I've been working on a directing piece and some other things, but I mean, that's the thing I love, and that's the thing I'll never stop doing. So, and given what I've done so far, stage is, even if I did more TV and film, there's a possibility that my life could shift in that direction, but most likely
Your heart is here.
Most likely it will stay in theater because that's what people will want to hire me for, because that's like my expertise is in that.
Is there one thing that has, looking back, has helped you the most in your current role?
I would say a mix between the arts, or the liberal arts nature of Porter-Gaud. I mean, I was constantly in art class and music class. I took my first piano lesson with Jerry Grader when I was a kid. Choirs were very influential in my life. Like, that was my passion probably up until, I mean, I loved doing musical theater, and I think I didn't think there was ever a career path to being a choir singer. I know there is, it's a very, very small slice. But choir, I loved choir. I did the barbershop quartet when I was there. I loved that. And then I would say the English department. Not just one teacher, but many teachers. The English department.
So how does the English department, how do you feel like that is translated into being successful on stage?
On the acting side, I mean, we're dealing with text. You know, we're dealing with plays that sing, mostly. My career has been mostly musical, but at the end of the day, it's a play. It's a story. And they opened up so many doors to ideas about psychology. And I mean, they were like, professors were talking about Jung and Freud and just going deep into text. I mean, it's got an incredible English department. I'm sure it still does. And that has informed my ability as an actor. Not necessarily, that's a little separate from the music side of things, but to do musical theater, you got to do both. You got to sing, you got to act. Those are the two main things. Or dance would be the third discipline, but that's not really ever been my strongest suit. And dealing with text at a really high level has been instrumental to my success. Matthew Shingledecker, right there. Call board, any important information I might have. Cool. Coffee's ready, love it. The dressing room. My fearless dresser. Actually, it's a school that I went to from 1st through 12th grade. 12 years. Wow. Yeah. All right, got my vest on, the iconic red vest of Angel Ross, and as you can see on stage left, and I think it's time to go on, so see you guys later. All right.